The coffee in my cup had gone cold, but I didn't move to refresh it. Across the dining room table at Mom's house, my stepbrother Marcus was holding court like he always did, gesturing wildly with his phone in one hand. The Hendersons are offering $4.2 million, he announced to the assembled family. Cash offer, 30-day close. My half-sister Emma squealed. Marcus, that's incredible. You can have the wedding you've always dreamed of. I took a small sip of the cold coffee. Nobody looked at me. Marcus had called this emergency family meeting 3 days ago. Everyone showed up. Mom's stepmother Linda, her husband Richard, Marcus's father, Emma, Richard's sister Patricia, and Marcus's fiancée Jennifer. The only person who seemed uncertain about their presence was me. The house itself felt different without Mom in it. She'd lived here for 8 years with Richard, and I'd visited regularly for Sunday dinners. Now it felt like Richard's house, filled with his family, making decisions about property that had never been theirs. We've already selected a realtor, Patricia added, pulling out her iPad to show glossy photos of the beach house. Diane Morrison. She's top tier in Orange County, specializes in luxury coastal properties. Jennifer leaned forward eagerly, and Marcus spoke to a wedding planner, who works with the Harbor Club. They have an opening in May. It's absolutely perfect timing. May, I said. That's less than 3 months away. Exactly. Marcus grinned. Fast close, immediate access to funds, dream wedding by spring. Everything's aligning. Richard nodded slowly, though I caught a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Your mother always said the house was meant to bring joy to the family. She did say that, I agreed carefully. Among other things, the beach house has been sitting empty for 2 years, Richard said, though that wasn't entirely accurate. I'd been there just last month, checking on the maintenance crew's work. Your mother would have wanted it to benefit the family. My mother, not his wife of 12 years. My mother, who died 14 months ago, after 18 months of fighting pancreatic cancer. I've already spoken with a real estate attorney, Marcus continued, pulling up documents on his phone. Since Dad married Mom, and the property was technically in family use during their marriage, we have a strong case for communal ownership. California's community property laws are pretty clear. I set my coffee cup down with deliberate care. That's not how property law works. Everyone turned to stare at me. It was the first thing I'd said since arriving 30 minutes ago. Marcus's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. What was that, Alex? Community property laws don't retroactively apply to assets acquired before marriage, I said, keeping my voice level. Mom bought that house in 2008, 5 years before she married Richard. It was purchased with funds from Dad's life insurance policy, and her own savings, both separate property under California law. Richard's jaw tightened. Your mother always considered it a family asset. She welcomed all of us there for holidays, birthdays. Welcoming people to a house and transferring ownership are 2 different things, I interrupted quietly. Patricia set down her iPad with more force than necessary. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Richard. Alex has always been difficult about family matters. Your mother left you that beach house in her will. Actually, she didn't, I said. The room went silent. Excuse me, Patricia's voice was sharp. Mom didn't leave the house to anyone in her will, because it wasn't part of her probate estate. Marcus leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Alex, we've been through Mom's will with our attorney. The house is listed as an asset she owned, yes, but not as an asset to be distributed through probate. I pulled out my phone and opened a saved document. The property was transferred into a revocable living trust in 2008. The trust was amended in 2013 when Mom married Richard, specifically to clarify that the real property remained separate. You're making this up, Emma said uncertainly. The trust documents are filed with Orange County, public record. Anyone can request copies. Richard shifted in his seat. Even if there was a trust, I'm the surviving spouse. California law is clear about spousal rights to community property, I finished. Not to separate property held in trust. The trust agreement names a specific trustee and specific beneficiaries for the real property. You're neither. Marcus's face had started to flush. Our attorney said, that's not how property law works, I said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at me. It was the first thing I'd said since arriving. Marcus's smile didn't waver. What was that, Alex? Community property laws don't retroactively apply to assets acquired before marriage. Mom bought that house in 2008. She married Richard in 2013. Richard's face reddened slightly. Your mother always considered it a family asset. She hosted Richard's entire family there for Thanksgiving every year. Hospitality doesn't equal ownership transfer, I replied, meeting his eyes. She had very specific plans for it, I continued. Very specific legal arrangements. Plans change, Patricia interjected, her voice tight. And frankly, Alex, you've barely visited the place in years. Marcus and Jennifer have been maintaining it, checking on it, making sure the pipes don't freeze in winter. The house is in Laguna Beach, I said. It doesn't freeze, and I pay for the landscaping service that maintains the property year-round. I also pay the property taxes, the insurance and the utilities. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. Mom's bank accounts were transferred to Dad after she passed. Whatever withdrawals you think you're making are coming from my personal checking account. I finished. I can show you 18 months of bank statements if you'd like. Every automatic payment, every service fee, every utility bill, all documented. An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Jennifer, who'd been mostly quiet, watching the exchange with growing unease, leaned forward. Look, Alex, we're not trying to cut you out completely. We understand you have sentimental attachment to the place. Marcus and I just think for our wedding, it would be perfect to use the sale money for the venue we really want, the Harbor Club in Newport. We'd absolutely invite you, obviously, you could bring a guest. The generosity of being invited to a wedding funded by the unauthorized sale of my mother's property was not lost on me. How generous, I said evenly. Marcus's careful expression cracked. You don't belong in this family anyway, he said, his voice hardening. You never did. You show up to these things with your attitude, acting like you're better than everyone, like we're beneath you somehow. You contribute nothing, Marcus. Richard started, but his son cut him off. No, Dad, it's true. Alex hasn't been part of this family in any real way since you married Mom. 12 years, and what? Birthday cards, obligatory holiday appearances, when Mom guilted her into coming. Meanwhile, we've been here. We've been the ones actually building something together. I set down my coffee cup carefully. The closing date is when? Marcus blinked at the abrupt subject change. What? You said 30-day close. When's the closing scheduled? You said 30-day close. When's the closing? March 15th. Why? Just curious, I said. Congratulations on your sale. I stood to leave. Wait, Richard said. That's it? You're not going to fight this? Would it matter? I asked, genuinely curious. The question seemed to catch him off guard. We're your family, Alex. We should be able to discuss these things. You're not discussing, I pointed out. You're announcing. There's a difference. I left before anyone could respond. The next 2 weeks moved with the strange momentum that comes from watching a train head toward a collapsed bridge. Marcus posted on social media constantly, photos of the beach house with captions like saying goodbye to make room for new beginnings, sunset shots with Jennifer where they talked about sacrifices that lead to blessings. His posts got hundreds of likes, comments flooded in, so proud of you. This is what family means. Your mom is smiling down. That last one made my stomach turn every time I saw it. Jennifer's Instagram became a wedding planning showcase. She documented everything, the dress shopping trips with her mother and bridesmaids, the cake tastings, the florist consultations. She posted a photo of the Harbor Club contract signature with the caption, "Dreams don't work unless you do." So grateful for a partner who makes the impossible possible. The venue deposit receipt appeared in another post, $65,000, paid in full non-refundable, secured our dream location, she'd written. May 15th can't come soon enough. I watched her hire a coordinator, someone named Destiny, who charged $8,000 just for day of services. The photographer was another $12,000. The florist's quote, which Jennifer gleefully shared, was $18,000 for ceremony and reception arrangements. Going big on the flowers because life is short and weddings are forever. She'd registered at 3 different stores. The gift total was already approaching $40,000 in requested items. The honeymoon 2 weeks in Bora Bora had been booked and partially paid for. Another $30,000. Emma texted me once during this period. Mom would want us to be happy. You know that, right? She'd want Marcus to have this. I stared at the message for a long time, before deciding not to respond. What could I say? That Mom had literally created legal structures to prevent exactly this scenario. That she'd sat me down 6 months before she died, and made me promise to protect the house. Don't let them guilt you, Mom had said. her voice already weakened by the cancer spreading through her pancreas. Richard is a good man, but he can't say no to Marcus. And Marcus has never understood that wanting something doesn't mean you're entitled to it. What if they hate me? I'd asked. Then they hate you, she'd said simply. But at least they'll hate you while you're protecting something I built. Something that came from your father's love and my work. That matters more than being liked, Alex. The beach house itself sat unchanged through all of this. I drove by it once, not stopping, just slowing down as I passed. The for sale sign was up, Diane Morrison's face smiling from the placard, her phone number in bold letters. Under contract had been added in bright red. Someone had been inside recently. I could see fresh vacuum lines through the front window, and the plants on the deck had been watered. Jennifer probably, staging it for her mental picture of the house that made our dreams come true. When she married Richard, she'd made it clear the property was separate. I remember the conversation, the lawyer's office, the documents she'd shown me. This is yours, Alex, she'd said. Not because I don't love them, because I do love you. Richard had seemed fine with it then, but that was before Mom got sick. Before the cancer diagnosis, the rapid decline, the funeral where he'd sobbed at the podium about our life together. I'd watched Marcus that day, standing beside Jennifer, his face appropriately somber. He'd delivered a eulogy about the mother, who welcomed me when she married Dad, and the love she brought to our blended family. It had been a nice speech. Some of it was even true. On March 10th, 5 days before closing, I received an email from Marcus's real estate attorney. Dear Alex, it began. In the interest of transparency and family harmony, I'm providing you notice that the property located at 2847 Coast Highway, Laguna Beach, is scheduled to close on March 15th at 2 p.m. While your stepfather Richard has legal authority as surviving spouse, we wanted to extend the courtesy of informing you. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact my office. I forwarded the email to my own attorney, a woman named Victoria Chang, who'd handled Mom's estate planning. She called me within an hour. This is interesting, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Did you tell them? No. Are you planning to? I thought I'd let the process play out. Alex, this could get messy. They've clearly spent money based on expectations. I know. She paused. You're sure about this approach? What did Mom always say? The best teaching moments come from natural consequences. Victoria laughed. She was talking about medical students, not family drama. The principle applies. All right, I'll be there on the 15th. This should be educational. Marcus posted about the closing day. Big day tomorrow. Turning the page on the past, writing the future with my beautiful bride-to-be. Sometimes you have to let go to move forward. #new beginnings #family. First, the comments were supportive. So happy for you guys. This is what family is about. Your mom would be so proud. That last one caught in my throat a little. Jennifer's post was more direct. A photo of the Harbor Club's grand ballroom. 48 days until I marry my best friend in this room. Dreams really do come true when you're with the right person. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. The vendors were booked, the invitations had been mailed, 250 of them, embossed and expensive. The photographer, the florist, the jazz quartet, the ice sculpture artist. Jennifer's dress had been altered twice to perfection. Marcus had rented a vintage Rolls-Royce for the exit. The total wedding budget, based on the Instagram posts and vendor tags I'd seen, was easily north of $300,000, all dependent on the beach house closing. March 15th arrived with the kind of perfect Southern California weather that real estate agents dream about. Sunny, 72 degrees, a light ocean breeze. The closing was scheduled at Pacific Coast Title Company in Newport Beach. I arrived at 1:45 p.m., dressed in a simple suit, carrying a leather portfolio. The receptionist recognized me from previous visits. Miss Morgan, good to see you. Conference room B. Thank you, Sandra. I could hear Marcus's voice before I reached the conference room, loud, confident, celebrating. When I entered, the conversation stopped. The room held 9 people. Marcus, Richard, Jennifer, Patricia, the buyers, a couple in their 60s, named the Hendersons, their agent, Marcus's agent, and the escrow officer. Alex, Richard said, surprised. What are you doing here? I was invited, I said, setting my portfolio on the table. The courtesy email from your attorney. Marcus exchanged a glance with his agent. This is a family matter. We're handling it. I understand. I took a seat at the far end of the table. Mrs. Henderson leaned toward her husband and whispered something. He nodded. Marcus's agent, a polished woman in her 50s named Diane, cleared her throat. Well, shall we begin? We're just waiting for the notary. As if on cue, the door opened and a young man in his 30s entered, carrying a notary stamp and a thick folder of documents. Sorry I'm late. Traffic on the 405 was brutal. I'm James Kirkland, your notary for today's signing. Everyone settled into their seats. The escrow officer, a meticulous man named Peter Chen, began distributing document packets. All right, Peter said. We're here for the transfer of property at 2847 Coast Highway, Laguna Beach. The sellers are represented by Richard Morgan, acting as the surviving spouse of the deceased owner, Dr. Sarah Morgan. The buyers are Gerald and Patricia Henderson. Before we begin signatures, I need to verify all parties' identities and authority to execute these documents. He started with the Hendersons, checking their driver's licenses against the purchase agreement. Jennifer squeezed Marcus's hand excitedly. She'd worn a new dress for the occasion. I'd seen it on her Instagram that morning, tagged #closing day. Richard Morgan, Peter continued, holding out his hand. Richard provided his license. Peter compared it to the documentation, then frowned slightly. Mr. Morgan, I'm showing here that the property was held in a revocable living trust. Do you have the trust documents with you? It was my wife's trust, Richard said. When she passed, her assets transferred to me as surviving spouse. That's not quite how trusts work, Peter said carefully. Do you have documentation showing you as the successor trustee? Marcus leaned forward. Our attorney confirmed this. The property was used by the family. California is a community property state. The property was acquired before your father's marriage to Dr. Morgan, Peter interrupted, checking his notes. In 2008, correct? Yes, but then it wouldn't be community property regardless. Peter flipped through his documents. I'm going to need to see the actual trust documents and verification of trustee authority before we can proceed. The room went very quiet. Richard shifted uncomfortably. I don't have those with me. Did your attorney not provide them? Peter asked. He said they weren't necessary, Marcus interjected. This is a straightforward transfer. With all due respect, Peter said, no transfer involving a trust is straightforward without proper documentation. Who's the named trustee of Dr. Morgan's revocable living trust? Richard opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Marcus. Marcus's confidence had developed a hairline crack. My understanding was that Dad, as surviving spouse, I'm the trustee, I said quietly. Every head in the room turned toward me. I'm sorry, Peter said. I opened my portfolio and removed a document. I'm the named trustee of the Sarah Morgan Revocable Living Trust, established April 2008, amended June 2013. I have the certified copies here, along with the death certificate and my identification. I slid the documents across the table to Peter. The silence in the room was profound. James the notary leaned forward to examine the papers alongside Peter. After a moment, Peter nodded. These appear to be in order. The trust names Alexandra Morgan as both trustee and primary beneficiary. That's impossible, Richard said, his voice barely above whisper. It's public record, I replied. Filed with Orange County when the trust was established, and when it was amended after Mom married you. The amendment specifically reaffirmed me as sole trustee and beneficiary of the real property assets. Marcus's face had gone white. You never said anything. You never asked, our attorney said. Richard started. Your attorney apparently didn't do a title search, Peter interrupted. Which should have been the first step. Miss Morgan, do you have additional documentation of your authority? I provided my trustee certification, my identification, and the property deed showing the trust as owner. Peter examined everything carefully, then turned to Richard and Marcus. Gentlemen, I'm afraid this closing cannot proceed. The person attempting to sell the property has no legal authority to do so. Only Miss Morgan, as trustee, has that authority. This is insane, Marcus exploded. Alex, you can't just what? I asked calmly. Protect my mother's property. The property she explicitly left to me in a legal document. Jennifer's face had crumpled. But the wedding, we've already spent the earnest money, I finished. Yes, I saw your Instagram posts, the Harbor Club deposit, the photographer, the dress alterations. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. I'm confused. If you have no authority to sell, where did our earnest money go? That's an excellent question, I said, looking at Marcus. Marcus's agent Diane had pulled out her phone and was frantically typing. We received the earnest money in good faith. The sellers represented themselves as having authority. Represented, Peter emphasized, but did not actually have. This is why we do title searches. Miss Morgan, did you authorize this sale in any capacity? I did not. Did you sign any documents relating to this sale? I did not. Were you even aware a sale was being attempted until recently? I was informed at a family meeting on February 20th that Marcus intended to sell. I was not consulted. I was not asked for permission. I was in fact told I didn't belong in the family. When I questioned the legality, I said this last part looking directly at Marcus, whose face had now progressed from white to a splotchy red. James the notary was making notes. For the record, without the actual trustee's signature and consent, any sale documents would be void. Additionally, if funds were transferred based on fraudulent representation of authority, he trailed off meaningfully. Mr. Henderson stood abruptly. Patricia, we're leaving. Diane, I want our earnest money returned immediately. The money has been disbursed to the sellers, Diane said weakly. Then undisbursed it, Mr. Henderson snapped. This is fraud. We put down $200,000 in good faith. $200,000, more than I'd estimated. Jennifer made a small sound of distress. Our attorney will be in contact, Mrs. Henderson said coldly, gathering her purse, and I'll be filing a complaint with the California Bureau of Real Estate. The Hendersons and their agent left. The room felt much larger with just 7 of us remaining. Richard found his voice first. Alex, your mother would never have wanted this kind of division in the family. No, I agreed. She wouldn't have. That's why she was very clear about her wishes. She showed me the trust documents. She explained them. She made me promise to protect them. You could have told us, Marcus said, his voice strained. I did tell you. At the family meeting, you told me I was wrong about property law. You told me I didn't belong in the family. You proceeded with a sale you had no authority to make. We didn't know. You didn't ask. I corrected. You assumed you wanted something, and you took it, and you didn't consider that maybe, just maybe, there was a legal reason you couldn't. Peter was gathering his documents. I'll need to file a notice of failed closing. Morgan, as the actual property owner, you'll need to sign some documentation confirming the sale was unauthorized. Of course. James the notary packed up his stamp. I'm required to report suspected fraud to the California Secretary of State. This clearly meets that threshold. Marcus lurched to his feet. Alex, please. The wedding is in 48 days. We've already paid everything. The venue. The vendors. Jennifer's family flew in from Boston for the engagement party based on this. We told everyone. You told everyone. You were selling property you didn't own. I said, that's not my problem, Marcus. That's yours. You heartless. He caught himself, breathing hard. Jennifer was crying now, quiet tears running down her carefully made-up face. Patricia had her arm around her. Richard stood slowly. What do you want, Alex? Money? We can work something out. A percentage of the sale when we do it properly. I don't want to sell the house, I said simply. Then what do you want? I looked at each of them. Richard, who'd presented himself as the grieving widower while planning to sell his dead wife's property without her daughter's knowledge. Marcus, who'd built his entire wedding fantasy on stolen foundations. Patricia, who'd supported every step because it benefited her nephew. Jennifer, who'd perhaps known, perhaps not, that her dream wedding was funded by fraud. I want you to understand something, I said quietly. My mother spent 20 years saving for that house. She bought it with money she earned. Money she saved. Money that came from Dad's life insurance after he died. She married your father, Richard, and she loved him. But she protected that house because it was her piece of independence. Her reminder that she was more than just someone's wife. I gathered my portfolio. When she got sick, she made me promise to keep it. Not to sell it, not to give it away, but to keep it. Because she knew, that without those protections, people would try to take it. And she was right. So what happens now? Marcus asked dully. Now, I stood. Now you figure out how to return $200,000 in earnest money to the Hendersons. You figure out how to tell your wedding guests that the venue is canceled. You figure out how to explain to Jennifer's family that the wedding they flew across the country for isn't happening. At least, not the way you planned. We could sue you, Patricia said suddenly. For the money we've already spent, damages. I smiled without humor. You could try, but you'd have to prove you had a reasonable expectation of receiving property you never had any legal claim to, and then I'd countersue for attempted fraud, emotional distress, and violation of fiduciary duty. My mother's estate attorney is very good. Ask Richard. He met her at the funeral. Richard's face went gray. Victoria Chang. I confirmed. She handled all of Mom's estate planning. She's the one who drafted the trust amendments when Mom married you. Richard. She's the one who made sure everything was protected. And she's the one who's been documenting every social media post, every text message, every email about this sale for the past 3 weeks. I walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Marcus, I hope you and Jennifer have a beautiful wedding, just not one funded by selling my mother's house without permission. I left them sitting in the conference room, Peter still organizing his documents, James making his official notes, my step-family slowly realizing the magnitude of what they'd done. The first call came before I'd even reached my car. Richard, asking if we could talk like reasonable adults. I let it go to voicemail. The second call was from Emma, crying, saying I'd destroyed the family. I let that one go to voicemail too. By the time I got home, my phone had 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, and a Facebook message from Jennifer's mother asking if there was any way to salvage this situation for these young people in love. I turned off my phone. The next morning, Marcus's Instagram had been deleted. Jennifer's had gone private. The wedding hashtag they'd been promoting #Marcus and Jennifer Forever had been abandoned. Victoria called on my landline. Peter Chen filed the failed closing report, she said. The Hendersons' attorney contacted me about recovery of earnest money. Apparently Marcus and Jennifer spent almost all of it. The venue deposit was $65,000, but they also paid the caterer, florist, photographer and band in full, advance payment discounts. How much is left? About $30,000. The Hendersons want full recovery plus damages. They're prepared to sue Marcus, Richard and the listing agent. What about criminal charges? The DA's office is reviewing. It depends on whether they can prove intentional fraud versus negligent misrepresentation. Marcus's attorney claiming they confirmed the authority to sell actually works against them. It shows they knew to check, but failed to do so properly. I sat down heavily. Victoria, did I do the right thing? She was quiet for a moment. Do you remember what your mother said when she set up the trust? Which part? She told me. I'm not doing this to be controlling. I'm doing this because I know who I married, and I know his weaknesses. Richard is a good man, but he's easily influenced by Marcus, and Marcus has never understood the value of things he didn't earn himself. She said that. Verbatim. It's in my notes from the trust amendment meeting. She knew Alex. She knew exactly this scenario could happen. That's why she made you trustee. Not to hurt them, but to protect what she'd built. After we hung up, I drove to the beach house. It was exactly as I'd left it. Clean, maintained, waiting. I walked through the rooms Mom had designed, stood on the deck overlooking the ocean she'd loved. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Jennifer. I just want you to know you've destroyed the happiest day of my life. I hope you're satisfied. I deleted it without responding. Another text came through, this time from Emma. Mom would be ashamed of you. That one I answered. Mom set up the trust specifically to prevent this situation. She made her wishes clear. I'm honoring them. Emma's response was immediate. You're hiding behind a dead woman's wishes to justify being cruel. I typed and deleted 3 responses before finally settling on if respecting Mom's explicit legal documents is cruel, then yes, I'm cruel. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that Mom used to photograph obsessively. She'd called them California's apology for everything else. A final text came through, this time from Richard. We need to talk about moving forward as a family. I looked at the message for a long time before responding. The family moves forward by respecting Mom's wishes. That starts with accepting that this house was never yours to sell. His response came quickly. It was never about the house. It was about taking care of Marcus. Mom took care of me by protecting her property. I wrote back. Maybe it's time for you to teach Marcus about consequences instead of rescuing him from them. He didn't reply. 3 days later, Victoria called with an update. The Hendersons settled with Marcus and Richard for full return of earnest money plus $20,000 in damages. Richard had to take a loan against his retirement account. The listing agent's insurance is covering part of it. And the wedding, postponed indefinitely. The Harbor Club kept their deposit. No refunds within 60 days. Most of the other vendors did the same. Jennifer's dress alterations were non-refundable. They're out about $140,000 total. I closed my eyes. That's brutal. That's fraud consequences. Victoria said matter-of-factly. The DA declined to file criminal charges, but the real estate board is investigating the agent. Marcus's attorney is also under review for providing incorrect legal advice. What about us? Any blowback? None. You were the legal owner protecting your property. You didn't misrepresent anything, didn't hide anything that you were obligated to disclose. They never asked you for permission, never consulted you as trustee. Legally and ethically, you're completely clear. After the call, I sat on the beach house deck and tried to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. My phone rang. Against my better judgment, I answered. Alex. It was Marcus, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Can we talk? I'm listening. I'm not calling to argue, or ask for money, or try to change anything. He paused. I'm calling to say I'm sorry. I waited. I convinced myself that because Mom married Dad, everything became family property. I wanted it to be true so badly that I didn't check, didn't ask, didn't think. Another pause. Dad tried to tell me we should consult you, and I shut him down. I told him you were just going to be difficult, that we should just move forward. Marcus, let me finish. Please. He took a shaky breath. I spent the last 3 days realizing that I planned an entire wedding on money I didn't have, from a sale I had no right to make, for a house I never owned. And when everything fell apart, my first instinct was to blame you for not warning me, not to blame myself for not asking permission. I leaned back against the deck railing. What are you going to do now? Jennifer and I are getting married at the courthouse next month. Small reception at her parents' house. We'll save up for a real celebration later. He laughed without humor. Turns out you can't build a dream on someone else's foundation. Mom used to say something similar. I said quietly. About surgical technique. You can't borrow someone else's hands and expect them to know what your brain wants. She was right about a lot of things. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Alex. I know I don't have any right to ask this, but the house. What are you going to do with it? Keep it. Use it. Honor what Mom wanted. Could we? He trailed off. Never mind. Ask. Could Jennifer and I maybe visit sometimes? Not to claim it or anything like that. Just to, I don't know. Remember her. I thought about my mother, about her ability to love fiercely while setting clear boundaries, about how she'd protected her property while still welcoming Richard's family into her life. Once a year, I said, you can pick the weekend, but you ask first, and you respect that it's my space. Deal. I could hear the relief in his voice. Thank you, Marcus. One more thing. Yeah? Get your own attorney next time. One who actually does title searches. He laughed. A real laugh. No kidding. After we hung up, I walked inside and found the box of Mom's photos. The ones she'd taken from this deck. Dozens of sunsets, each one slightly different, each one perfectly preserved. On the back of one, in her precise doctor's handwriting, some things are worth protecting, not because we don't want to share them, but because losing them would mean losing ourselves. I taped the photo to the refrigerator, where I'd see it every time I visited. My phone buzzed one last time. Emma. Richard told me what happened at the closing. I'm sorry I called you cruel. You were just doing what Mom asked. I typed back, family is complicated, but Mom's wishes weren't. Thanks for understanding. Outside, the sun finished setting over the Pacific. Inside, Mom's house stood exactly as she'd planned it, protected, preserved, and mine to keep. The beach house would stay in the family, just not the family Marcus had assumed.